This is a very hard video for me to make, but on the 10th anniversary of the death of my best friend, I think I need to make this video. Okay, so I had a friend, and in my life before and since, I've never met anybody that I resonated with more than him. And we were very, very, very close, and that got confusing. You know, when you're a guy and a girl and you're that close and you're so perfect, even when the physical romantic chemistry isn't there, you'll often get it confused, and that's what happened with us. And our relationship got really awkward. And on the one hand, we were great friends, but romantically it just didn't jive. And but we didn't want to see either one of us with anybody else either, because you don't want to, lose a friend to a lover or whatever. So anyway, our relationship just got really confusing and eventually toxic. Not even, it didn't even get toxic. It was just confusing. And our egos got in the way, and he was young, 20 something boy, so he wanted to experience. He was a musician. He told me he wanted to sign tits. That's the reason he became a musician, so as he could get famous and sign tits all day. And my ego had huge issues with that, and we butt heads. So I had a hard time being a good friend because I was getting my heart hurt, and that got in the way of me being supportive as a friend. And then at some point, I saw him start to spiral, and his behavior became erratic. And I began to get concerned for his mental health. So I started telling all of our mutual friends, because we all partied within the same group of really, really tight pals, that something was wrong. And they all thought that I was just overreacting to the fact that me and him were no longer an item. And after a while, I started to agree that maybe I was wrong and he wasn't going crazy, and I was just hurt or being stupid or whatever. And then one night, things came to a head between he and I. And he was about to embark on a big life change. He quit his job and was going back to school to study music, which was something that he was not getting a lot of support from his family, and music was his reason for living. He lived and breathed music. And he was very afraid of making this change because, in part, I was a lot older than him, and he had seen me live the life of a struggling, starving artist. And I was broke, like I'm talking going hungry broke. And I was living on couches, like I was really struggling. So he was petrified of going from middle class security to that kind of poverty. And he knew, to be an authentic artist, that he kind of had to go that route for a while. And he was afraid. And he told me in our last conversation, Daniela, I can't do this without you. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this without you by my side. But at the same time, he didn't want me to be his girlfriend either. So he was kind of struggling. And it turned into an argument. And I finally had enough. And because I felt like I was being led on, or I don't know, it was just confusing anyway. So by fluke, he and I had an argument, and then me and my roommate had an argument that same night, and I was just at the end of my rope. And the company I worked for was in a different city, and my boss offered me a chance to just go down to head office. They had a camper they were going to get let me live in the meantime, until we figured out a living situation for me. And literally in the middle of the night, I packed up all my shit and took off. So before everybody woke up the next day, I was gone. And I left no forwarding address. I left nothing. And he moved into my bedroom. And apparently he was fine. And I guess everybody moved on with life. And then the day before he was set to go to school, he committed suicide. And I never read the note, so I don't know what the note says about why he did it. I just have my own theories. My reason for making this video isn't to tell his story, because that's almost irrelevant. I want to discuss my guilt. Because right in the beginning, the first thing everybody drills into you is it's not your fault, right? And his parents were kind enough to get us counseling. And in counseling, all you hear is, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. I read a book about suicide, and I forget the guy who wrote it, but the psychologist that was quoted in the book said that someone who commits suicide puts their skeletons in everybody else's closet, and that's very true. And as much as everybody kept telling me not to feel guilty, I felt guilty, because echoing in my ears, all I can hear is him saying, I can't do this without you, Daniela. If you're not next to me, I can't do this. And then the next thing I know, the day before he was supposed to go do this, he kills himself. So how do I get past that, right? And I couldn't. And as much as I tried to tell myself what the counselors were saying or whatever, the guilt didn't leave me. And then one day I did psilocybin, to be honest, and it was a horrendous trip because I became consumed with this guilt. But I realized that that trip actually freed me from this, because I realized that it was my fault. Maybe not pulling the trigger, but I promised him I'd be there and I wasn't. And I let my hurt feelings give me a reason to abandon him as a friend. And as a person, I put my ego before my friend's mental health. And now looking back, maybe his mental health had something to do with even us not working out or things getting confusing, and I didn't even give him or it or anything a chance to evolve the way it was supposed to. I just ran away. I ran away and licked my wounds like a sore, hurt fucking dog, and I let my friend die alone. And as soon as I admitted that I had a part to play in his suicide, it was like 1,000 pounds of shit left me. I had to acknowledge how weak of a person I was and what a bad friend I was. And let me tell you, I've never abandoned anybody since. I haven't run away from anybody since. You know, it taught me a lesson that, it just taught me big lessons. And those lessons have made me a better person. It's 10 years. And his death still haunts me. And my heart breaks every time I think of him. And I'm full of regret. I'd have to say not loving him is a regret of my life, but how I abandoned him is one of the biggest regrets of my life. And 10 years later, it's still a lesson I'm continually learning. And I'm grateful for that lesson, because anytime I've been tempted to bolt like I used to do, I remember him and know what kind of person do I want to be in the face of this? What kind of a friend do I want to be in the face of this? And for the last decade, his death and my guilt attached to his death has made me a better person. So if you have somebody in your life that has committed suicide, that would be my advice to you, is if you feel guilty, then own that. Own it and understand it. And how can this maybe help you be a better person for the future? And it can. These heartbreaks, this is what makes you grow as people, is these tragedies and these mistakes and the things that they cause and the fallout from your fuck-ups. That is what helps you become a better person. If you embrace it. If you fight it and, well, he's a coward, he killed himself, and you just slough it off, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to grow, and you're going to leave a path of destruction behind you. You have to get to a place of inner strength, because it takes a lot to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and realize there's an asshole staring back at you. But it's the only way you're going to redeem yourself as a human being. So if there's somebody in your life that you think is fucked up, you need to do something about it. Don't wait. Don't, as soon as 2 or 3 friends shrug you off, don't assume they're right. If you have a gut feeling that somebody's fucked up, you need to do something because it will haunt you for the rest of your life. And that's my advice to you today.